Stan Lee, Marvel's figurehead and ever the charismatic wordsmith, and artists Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby formed a partnership that revolutionized the comic book industry. Together, they co-created a pantheon of iconic characters, each endowed with a unique blend of humanity and superhuman prowess. From the godly and steadfast mighty Thor to the cosmic grandeur of the Fantastic Four, their creations breathed life into a world where heroes were as flawed and relatable as the readers who admired them. Their most significant creation wasn't the most powerful, enigmatic of heroes. Instead, as we look back at the impressive catalog of heroes, villains, and alter egos the pair brought to life, it is a humble, street-level crime fighter that stands out as having the most impact on pop culture: Spider-Man. This is more than just another character in the classic Marvel stable. Spidey is special, and the character transcended mere comic book heroics. He was a revelation, reshaping the very essence of what a superhero could be. Peter Parker was a normal teenage boy who became a hero after a chance encounter with the radioactive arachnid, and Marvel's target audience lapped it up. He was just like them. Over the years, this character has gone from strength to strength, from the beginnings on the pages of Marvel Comics in the 1960s, right through to the MCU revitalizing the on-screen version of Spider-Man in modern times. In today's video, we'll chart the story of the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man from his origins in the minds of Stan Lee and Steve Ditko in the 1960s, right through to Tom Holland's Peter Parker, who stole the world's hearts in the MCU, and everything in between. If you're already a fan and want to indulge your love of the web-slinger, or if your spidey sense is tingling but you just don't know where to start, join us as we explore the history of Peter Parker's Spider-Man. Initially, Peter's narrative unfolded in the realm of teenage normalcy, punctuated by the trials and tribulations of high school. An orphan, he sought refuge with his Aunt May and Uncle Ben in the sprawling expanse of New York City. Within the crucible of academia, romance, and personal insecurities, he grappled with the perennial challenges of youth. Yet it was the tragic demise of Uncle Ben, a consequence of Peter's earlier inaction, that etched into his soul the indelible creed: "With great power comes great responsibility." These words, now immortalized, reverberated as a moral compass through the ages, leaving an indelible mark on comic book lore. Spider-Man's inaugural appearance in Amazing Fantasy number 15 was a resounding triumph, a testament to his immediate resonance with readers. Marvel, heeding this clarion call of popularity, swiftly granted him his own series, The Amazing Spider-Man, which unfurled its web of adventures in March of 1963, running right through the 1960s and into the 70s. In the early stages of his journey, Spider-Man encountered a rogues gallery of adversaries, each with their own nefarious machinations. From the Vulture to Dr. Octopus, Sandman to the enigmatic Green Goblin, Peter grappled with challenges both within and beyond the realm of his secret identity. This symbiosis of relatable personal trials and heart-pounding superhero escapades formed the crucible from which Spider-Man's enduring magnetism emerged. As the Spider-Man comics grew in popularity with Marvel's audience, so did the depth of the story grow too. Intertwined with Peter's heroic journey were pivotal figures in his life. Aunt May, a steadfast pillar of support, provided solace and guidance amidst the chaos of his dual existence. J. Jonah Jameson was also present from the start in Amazing Spider-Man number 1. The irascible editor-in-chief of the Daily Bugle emerged as both a vocal antagonist and a thorn in Peter's side. His relentless pursuit of damning headlines painted Spider-Man as a menace, perpetually challenging the hero's public image. This added a completely fresh challenge for Peter, and something never before seen in a comic book at that time. Gwen Stacy entered Peter's life in The Amazing Spider-Man number 31 in December 1965. She served as a beacon of light in Peter's personal life. A vivacious and intelligent presence, she brought a new dimension to Peter's world, offering him solace and companionship amidst the tumultuous sea of superheroes. Mary Jane Watson, often simply referred to as MJ, is one of the most iconic and enduring characters in the Spider-Man universe. She was introduced in The Amazing Spider-Man number 25 in 1965, and while she started as a neighbor and friend, this character would only grow in importance to Peter Parker's narrative in the years to come. In the autumn of 1967, The rights were purchased to create an animated cartoon to bring the web-slinger's adventures to life on the small screen. Aptly titled Spider-Man, this groundbreaking show made its debut on September 9, 1967. With a distinct animation style that mirrored the vivid palette of its comic book origins, Spider-Man burst forth with bright, colorful visuals that endeared it to audiences. Produced by Grant Ray Lawrence Animation and Krantz Films in association with Marvel Comics, the series embraced the classic Saturday morning cartoon format, with each episode lasting around 20 minutes. The voice of Spider-Man, brought to life by Paul Soles, resonated with an entire generation of fans. Alongside him, a roster of characters found their voice, including the nurturing Aunt May, voiced by Peg Dixon, the unyielding J. Jonah Jameson, brought to life by Paul Kligman, and the intrepid Betty Brant, also voiced by Peg Dixon. Throughout 3 seasons and 52 episodes, Spider-Man wove a tale of heroism and villainy, as the wall crawler faced off against a rogues gallery that included Dr. Octopus, the Green Goblin, the Vulture, and the indomitable Kingpin. Each episode encapsulated a thrilling encounter, drawing inspiration from the comic book storylines that had already captivated readers. Yet, it was the series' unforgettable theme song that truly etched itself into the collective memory. With lyrics that echoed through the years,
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can.
The melody became an anthem for fans young and old. Though budget constraints occasionally affected the animation quality, the 1967 Spider-Man series left an indelible mark on popular culture. It paved the way for future animated adaptations, contributing to the enduring popularity of the character beyond the pages of comic books. Released on various home video formats, the series remained a cherished piece of Spider-Man's expansive multimedia legacy.
I tried Mosquito Man, but that didn't have any glamour. Insect Man, that was even worse. I went down the line and I got to Spider-Man. It sounded mysterious and dramatic, and lo, a legend was born.
As a new decade came around, Spider-Man became more popular than Lee and Ditko could ever have imagined, and could no longer be contained within just one comic book series. Further books were created and released. Most notable were the Marvel Team-Up books, which saw Spidey cross over and share the pages with some of his fellow heroes, like the Human Torch of the Fantastic Four and Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. This standalone run would become a mainstay along with Amazing Spider-Man as the 2 longest-running series containing the webbed wonder. The biggest narrative development during this decade came in 1973. In The Amazing Spider-Man number 121 to 122, Gwen Stacy, one of Peter Parker's most beloved love interests, met a tragic end at the hands of the Green Goblin. This shocking and emotionally resonant event left a lasting impact on Spider-Man's character, and is considered a pivotal moment in comic book storytelling. In recent comics, characters don't pass away all that often, and when they do, it's rarely permanent. The latter would eventually be true years later for Gwen, with her cult status as a supporting character leading to Marvel eventually elevating her to don a suit herself in a 2010 spin-off. However, her on-page death was significant and would shape the narrative of Peter Parker for years to come. The character was also introduced to new audiences, first with the newspaper comic Stan Lee and Steve Ditko produced, which showed normal newspaper readers Peter Parker and Spider-Man, meaning people who didn't already read comic books or watch children's cartoons became aware of and fans of this beloved hero. In the 1970s, Spider-Man also made his live-action debut, swinging onto television screens in 2 notable productions. The Amazing Spider-Man TV series, which aired from 1977 to 1979, starring Nicholas Hammond as Peter Parker. This series, whilst it didn't age well, did a good job of capturing the essence of the beloved web-slinger. The show followed Peter's double life as a photographer for the Daily Bugle and his crime-fighting alter ego, Spider-Man. Additionally, the TV movie Spider-Man: The Dragon's Challenge premiered in 1979. Nicholas Hammond reprised his role for the movie, and the film sent Spider-Man on a global quest to thwart a criminal organization involved in drug trafficking. Despite the obvious technical limitations of the era, These live-action adaptations marked a significant milestone in bringing the iconic character from comic book panels to the television screen, introducing a new generation to Spider-Man's crime-fighting adventures. There were other shows in global markets like Japan, but these were less well-known and not as beloved as the Hammond productions for English-speaking audiences.
I never thought that Spider-Man would become the worldwide icon that he is. I just hoped the books would sell and I'd keep my job.
In the 1980s, Spider-Man's narrative took a dark turn with the introduction of the black suit. Similar in design to the classic red and blue costume, just in sleek black all over. As is always the case, things tend to look cooler in black. The black suit was initially revealed to be an alien symbiote. This transformative period not only granted Peter Parker enhanced powers, but also began to erode his moral compass. The iconic moment occurred in The Amazing Spider-Man number 252, published in 1984. The black suit endowed Peter with augmented strength, agility, and the ability to create webbing without his traditional shooters, amplifying his crime-fighting capabilities. However, the symbiote proved to be more than just a passive enhancement, subtly influencing Peter's behavior towards aggression and darker impulses. Recognizing the symbiote's malevolent nature, Peter sought help to rid himself of it, leading to a separation. The black suit found a new host in Eddie Brock, a disgraced journalist. This fusion birthed Venom, a formidable adversary for Spider-Man, driven by Brock's personal vendetta and the symbiote's raw power. The black suit and the emergence of Venom profoundly impacted Spider-Man's character development, delving into the struggle between power and responsibility. It illuminated the complexities of Peter's hero's journey, revealing that even with enhanced abilities, he was not immune to the challenges of wielding such power. Venom's introduction brought a new level of depth and complexity to Spider-Man's rogues gallery, setting the stage for future storylines and character arcs. The character's popularity transcended comic book pages, making Venom a cultural phenomenon, featured in various forms of media, including animated series, video games, and eventually live-action films. Venom's enduring appeal solidified his status as an iconic figure in popular culture, underscoring the lasting impact of this storyline on the broader cultural zeitgeist. In the 80s, MJ would become a more pivotal character for Peter's Spider-Man. Not only would she become Peter's love interest following the tragic death of Gwen Stacy, but she would also be the first to learn about Peter's secret identity, and this would create a unique and complex dynamic between the two characters. After dating on the page throughout the 1980s, the two would marry in 1987, although this was retconned much later, sparking controversy amongst fans. Kraven's Last Hunt, published in 1987, also moved Peter's narrative forward and gave him a new, well-matched adversary. This is a standout storyline in Spider-Man's comic book history, and is one of the most loved story arcs in the history of Spider-Man. Written by J.M. DeMatteis and illustrated by Mike Zeck, it delves into the dark psyche of Kraven the Hunter, a relentless adversary of Spider-Man. In this narrative, Kraven successfully captures and buries Spider-Man alive, setting the stage for a profound exploration of both characters' psyches. As Spider-Man struggles for survival, the story also delves into Kraven's troubled mind, revealing his motivations and insecurities. The climactic showdown between Spider-Man and Kraven not only tests their physical abilities, but also confronts their psychological vulnerabilities, leaving a lasting impact on their respective journeys. Kraven's Last Hunt is celebrated for its mature and introspective approach to storytelling, showcasing the depth and complexity that superhero narratives can achieve. In the 80s, video game systems began to spring up, and while they are far from the most celebrated Spider-Man games of all time, more on that later, the Atari did get a game simply titled Spider-Man in 1982, and this marked a humble but significant beginning to the IP being used in games. There wouldn't be another solo video game outing until 1990, but it was clear this well-loved character would be featured in games for years to come. However, the biggest impact during the 80s on the wider world would be the introduction of new television series. First was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, a new animated TV show that would run for 3 seasons from 1981 to 1983. produced by Marvel Productions with Stan Lee himself taking a lot of creative control and broadcast on NBC. The show brought together Spider-Man, Iceman, and Firestar as a crime-fighting trio. Spider-Man led the team with his wall-crawling abilities and web-shooting skills. Iceman, or Bobby Drake, could generate and control ice, while Firestar, also known as Angelica Jones, possessed the power to create intense heat and flames. The studio had originally wanted to use the Human Torch, which had appeared in comics with Spider-Man, but issues with the rights to the character meant that an original character was created to join Spidey and Iceman in this show. Firestar was born and was so loved in the cartoon that she was brought into the Marvel Mutants roster as a permanent addition. Set in New York City, the series followed the trio's adventures as they battled familiar supervillains like the Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus. Each episode ran for about 22 minutes in the traditional Saturday morning cartoon format. The show also featured appearances by other Marvel superheroes, such as the X-Men and the Avengers, adding an extra layer of excitement for fans. Spider-Man and his amazing friends remains a cherished part of many viewers' childhoods. Its blend of action, light-hearted storytelling, and collaborative superhero action made it a standout series in the world of animated superhero shows, and in some ways, paved the way for how the MCU would tackle the Marvel Universe nearly 30 years later. Alongside this new team-up show, a new animated show simply titled Spider-Man helped to bring the character to even more of a major audience. It featured a more modern and detailed animation style compared to its predecessor from the 1960s. The main character, Peter Parker, was voiced by Ted Schwartz, and the series included appearances by other familiar fan-favorite characters like J. Jonah Jameson and Aunt May. Running for only one season of 26 episodes, each episode had a standalone story where Spider-Man faced various villains from his rogues gallery, foes like the Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, and the Kingpin. This series, coupled with the Amazing Friends show, both hold a special place in the hearts of many Spidey fans. On the page, the 1990s witnessed the advent of the Clone Saga, a sprawling narrative arc that would have a profound impact on Spider-Man's continuity. This storyline introduced Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider, and delved into themes of identity and clone conspiracy. It brought a new layer of complexity to Spider-Man's narrative as he grappled with his clone's existence. The Clone Saga concluded in 1999, bringing resolution to the mystery of Ben Reilly's true identity and establishing his role as Scarlet Spider. The Maximum Carnage storyline in 1995 introduced the lethal symbiote Carnage and his destructive rampage through New York City. This arc showcased Spider-Man facing off against a formidable and relentless foe, pushing him to his limits. Maximum Carnage is a pivotal storyline in Spider-Man's comic book history, published in 1993. It follows the escape of the malevolent Carnage, a symbiote offspring of Venom, and his formation of a ruthless gang of supervillains. Spider-Man assembles a team of superheroes to counter this threat, leading to intense battles and an exploration of themes like violence and the nature of evil. The storyline solidified Carnage as a major antagonist and remains a memorable and influential part of Spider-Man's legacy. In 1998, the Gathering of Five storyline added a mystical dimension to Spider-Man's world. It featured a group of powerful artifacts, introducing elements of magic and mysticism to the Spider-Man narrative for the first time. These prominent storylines of the 1990s contributed to the rich tapestry of Spider-Man's adventures, offering readers engaging narratives, complex character development, and thrilling encounters with formidable foes. In 1994, Spider-Man the Animated Series hit screens worldwide. Running for 5 seasons, the show was produced by Marvel Films Animation and animated by Tokyo Movie Shinsha in Japan. Created by John Semper Jr., the series featured Christopher Daniel Barnes as the voice of Peter Parker or Spider-Man, along with a talented ensemble cast around him. The series explored iconic story arcs, including the Neogenic Nightmare, Six Forgotten Warriors, and Spider Wars, introducing characters like Morbius the Living Vampire and the Sinister Six, and even introduced Venom into the mix, an iconic adversary for the web-slinger. Renowned for its faithfulness to the source material and mature storytelling, the series garnered a wide-ranging fan base of both young viewers and comic book enthusiasts. Its theme song, composed by Joe Perry of Aerosmith, became an iconic musical signature. Spider-Man the Animated Series is considered a definitive portrayal of the web-slinger on the small screen, leaving a lasting legacy that has been the inspiration of many shows and movies released since. In 1999, a new animated show was broadcast, and it was completely different to any on-screen project focused on Spider-Man before it. Spider-Man Unlimited took audiences into a new universe for the first time. Based on a short but well-received comic book arc from earlier in the 1990s, it takes place in a futuristic alternate reality called Counter-Earth, where astronaut John Jameson crash lands. In this world, John gains superpowers and becomes a hero known as Man-Wolf, while Spider-Man acquires a new black suit with enhanced abilities. The show follows Spider-Man's adventures as he faces both familiar villains like Venom and Carnage, as well as new adversaries unique to this setting. The series is known for its stylized animation and deviation from the traditional Spider-Man storyline. Despite facing production issues and being cancelled after one season, Spider-Man Unlimited has garnered a dedicated fanbase for the unique twist on Spider-Man. In the world of video games, Spidey was going from strength to strength with nearly 20 titles released across a variety of systems in the 90s. That said, this was a decade where video games were far greater in quantity than reflected in quality. The exception was Spider-Man and Venom: Maximum Carnage, which took inspiration from the comic run of the same name. The classic side-scrolling beat-em-up was one of the most loved superhero games of the 90s, with great art and playability. It's pretty much the only 20th century Spidey game to make it onto anyone's top 10 Spider-Man game lists. By the turn of the century, Spider-Man was almost the face of Marvel. In the 1990s, while continuing to publish Spider-Man comics, Marvel had been in trouble financially and was close to going under in 1996. The way Stan Lee and his team at Marvel got through that mess was taking their assets and making them work harder. None would pay off quite as well as Spider-Man, aside from perhaps the X-Men, but that's not why we're here today. The rights to use Peter Parker and his web-slinging alter ego in media were sold, with Sony Pictures coming out on top. Whilst this gave Marvel less creative control over the films or shows their marquee character would appear in, it did save the company. That set up the first decade of the new millennium to be Spidey's biggest ever, in terms of the global appeal and reach this humble comic book hero was about to have. For start, several noteworthy Spider-Man comic runs left a lasting legacy on the character's mythology. Now a part of the New Avengers, Civil War between 2004 and 2006, one of the biggest ever Marvel crossover events, also had a significant impact on Spider-Man, as he grappled with the decision to reveal his secret identity amid a superhero conflict between two factions of Marvel's impressive roster. In standalone storylines, one standout series was Ultimate Spider-Man, written by Brian Michael Bendis with art by Mark Bagley. It offered a modern reimagining of Spider-Man's origin story within the Ultimate Marvel line, receiving acclaim for its fresh take on familiar characters. J. Michael Straczynski's 6-year run that started in 2001 contributed significantly to Spider-Man's lore. Straczynski introduced the concept of totemic powers and explored Peter Parker's personal life and relationships in depth, bringing a new depth to the character. The other, Evolve or Die in 2005, was a crossover event involving multiple Spider-Man titles. Written by Straczynski, Peter David, and Reginald Hudlin, it delved into the supernatural aspects of Spider-Man's powers, showcasing his evolution in the face of a powerful threat. In 2008, Brand New Day marked a soft reboot for Spider-Man comics. With a rotating team of writers including Dan Slott, Mark Guggenheim, and Bob Gale, the storyline brought significant changes to Peter Parker's life, reverting him to a single struggling young adult after the dissolution of his marriage to Mary Jane Watson. This retcon caused a lot of controversy amongst fans. These runs exemplify the influential and well-received Spider-Man comic series of the 2000s, introducing new ideas, redefining characters, and providing memorable storylines for fans of the iconic superhero. This was also the time that Spider-Man went from comic book legend to billion-dollar intellectual property, thanks to the start of several blockbuster movie franchises. Sam Raimi's trilogy of movies came first, the first live-action portrayal of this beloved character in over 20 years. The first film, aptly named Spider-Man, was released in 2002 and was an instant hit. The world of special effects and filmmaking had finally evolved to a point where characters from the world of comic books could be brought to life in live action in a way that represented the storylines and action of the books. And this was one of the first of this new golden generation films. Tobey Maguire was the first actor to portray Peter Parker on the big screen in a high-budget movie. His portrayal became known for capturing the character's relatability and the challenges of balancing superhero duties with personal life. The film charted the hero's origin story, introduced Uncle Ben and Aunt May with Mary Jane Watson as Peter's love interest to the big screen, and included clashes with the classic villain, the Green Goblin, chillingly brought to life by William Dafoe. One movie quickly became a trilogy. 2 years later, the sequel Spider-Man 2 was released after a setback. Maguire suffered a back injury during the filming of the follow-up, which briefly halted production. Jake Gyllenhaal was actually considered a replacement if Maguire couldn't continue, and we could have had a very different Peter Parker in the second movie if Maguire hadn't recovered in time. With Spidey facing off against Dr. Octopus this time, the movie built on the success of the first, with brilliant casting and writing helping grow the character even further. The trilogy was completed in 2007. The third movie, it's safe to say not the most loved by fans, rounded out Sam Raimi's vision for Peter Parker's story arc and added several adversaries into the mix, with Sandman and the New Goblin forming the external conflicts of the movie. But it was the internal struggle with the Venom symbiote that left fans a little wanting. The way Peter's darker side under the influence of Venom was portrayed was at the center of how fans viewed this movie. Despite Spidey fans reacting negatively, the film still performed well commercially. Overall, this first trilogy of films netted an impressive combined $2.5 billion at the box office. The first experiment of bringing a superhero to life on the big screen in the modern age of cinema had been a success, and it paved the way for an entire genre of movies that has dominated the cinema in the time since. In the Sam Raimi directed Spider-Man trilogy, Spider-Man's costumes undergo several notable changes. The initial costume, introduced in the 2002 film, is a red and blue suit with raised web patterns made of a stretchy metallic fabric. It features expressive eye lenses and web shooters on Spider-Man's wrists. In Spider-Man 3, Spider-Man acquires a black suit after encountering an alien symbiote. This suit is entirely black with a streamlined appearance and a larger white spider emblem on the chest. It enhances his powers, but also has a corrupting influence, leading to a change in his behavior. The black suit is actually a sentient alien symbiote that bonds with Spider-Man. It later adapts to become a sleek black version of his original costume. Eventually, Spider-Man rejects the symbiote, which finds a new host in Eddie Brock, leading to the creation of the villain Venom. Throughout the trilogy, these costumes play a significant role in Spider-Man's identity and character development, reflecting his journey from early heroism to the challenges he faces when influenced by the symbiote. Each costume is an iconic symbol of the character's evolution in popular culture.
Tobey Maguire was wonderful. The minute I heard he was in it, I thought it was a wonderful choice. He wasn't the obvious choice, and that's what made it so good.
It wasn't just on the big screen that Spider-Man continued to grow. There were several animated series that aired in this decade. Spider-Man, the new animated series, first aired in 2003. This series aired on MTV and features the more mature, computer-animated portrayal of Spider-Man. It explores Peter Parker's college years and introduces new villains like the Insidious Six into the fray. This shows that Spider-Man's audience was still evolving and growing as the years rolled by. The Spectacular Spider-Man from 2008 to 9 is highly regarded amongst the fan base for its faithful adaptation to the comics. It focuses on Peter's high school years and balances his personal life with his responsibilities as Spider-Man. The series introduced various iconic villains and explored the complex relationships of Peter's supporting cast and is well loved by fans to this day. The 2000s also brought us two standout Spider-Man video games. Spider-Man in 2000 brought us our first taste of a fully 3D Spidey adventure, and the follow-up, Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro, paved the way for Spider-Man 2 from 2004, released on all major platforms and standing out as one of the most acclaimed Spider-Man games ever released. This open-world action-adventure game allowed players to freely swing through the streets of New York City while taking on various missions and activities. Despite being limited by the computing power of gaming setups in that era, it still holds up as a great game. Ultimate Spider-Man from '05 offered a unique twist by immersing players in the Ultimate Marvel universe with a distinctive comic book art style. Players could control both Spider-Man and Venom, each with their own gameplay and mechanics. In 2007, we also got Spider-Man 3, a follow-up to the first two 3D adventures, and Spider-Man Friend or Foe, which was more of a cooperative platformer, where Spidey teams up with villains and friends to fight a common foe. Between 2010 and 2019, several key Spider-Man comic runs and storylines emerged, each contributing unique elements to the character's narrative. Big Time marked a pivotal moment for Spider-Man, as Peter Parker gained employment at Horizon Labs, leading to the creation of innovative gadgets and technologies. This period introduced iconic additions like the stealth suit, a black costume with green accents designed for covert operations and stealthy movements. Equipped with advanced technology, it allows Spider-Man to move quietly and evade electronic surveillance. The suit can also generate small amounts of electricity for offensive purposes, making it highly versatile for situations that require a low-profile approach. In Superior Spider-Man, which came back in 2013, a drastic twist occurred when Dr. Octopus switched bodies with Peter Parker. This resulted in Octopus assuming the role of Spider-Man, while Peter fought to regain control of his own body, exploring the concept of a superior Spider-Man. Spider-Verse in 2014 brought together Spider-People from diverse dimensions to combat a formidable threat posed by Morlun and his family, the Inheritors. This crossover event showcased an array of different Spider-People, each from an alternate universe. Renew Your Vows unfolded in an alternate universe where Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson were happily married with a daughter named Annie, who inherited her father's spider powers. The family fought crime together in this heartwarming storyline. Finally, in 2019, Hunted brought back fan-favorite villain Kraven the Hunter. Written by Nick Spencer with art by Humberto Ramos, the series saw Spider-Man and a supporting cast of numerous animal-themed characters become hunted by the relentless Kraven the Hunter in Central Park. This storyline delved into themes of identity and heroism. Spider-Man Life Story offers a unique reimagining of Spider-Man's history, unfolding in real time across each issue, with each installment covering a decade of his life. The Amazing Spider-Man Red Goblin introduces a high-stakes showdown between Spider-Man and his formidable adversary, the Green Goblin. This time, the Green Goblin has merged with the Carnage symbiote, resulting in a deadly and action-packed storyline that promises to keep readers on the edge of their seats. The Amazing Spider-Man Full Circle is a one-shot comic that assembles an all-star team of writers and artists, including talents like Jonathan Hickman, Nick Spencer, and Chris Bachalo. This imaginative story unites Spider-Man with other heroes in a collaborative effort to thwart a mysterious and formidable villain, resulting in an entertaining and inventive narrative. In the world of mass media, Sony didn't leave it long before they moved forward with a second Spider-Man franchise. In 2012, just 5 years after the end of the first trilogy, The Amazing Spider-Man was released. No longer starring Tobey Maguire though. His time as Peter Parker had come to an end in Spider-Man 3. This time, it was British actor Andrew Garfield who picked up the mantle. He was an avid Spidey fan before taking on the role, and his dedication to the character comes through on screen. This time, the wit, humor, and teenage struggle played a larger part. Opposite Parker this time would be Gwen Stacy, the iconic love interest from the original comic book series, played by Emma Stone. There would be 2 films in the second franchise, with the narrative focus on a new origin story, and Peter's quest to find out what happened to his parents the driving force. In the first movie, it was Dr. Curt Connors, played by Rhys Ifans, who was the central villain. Pulled from the comics, Connors is a scientist who transforms into the villainous Lizard after experimenting with a serum to regenerate his missing arm. Whilst not an iconic villain from the comics, the film went down well, with many focusing on the chemistry between Parker and Gwen Stacy and the way Peter's mannerisms were more in matching with the comics as the reasons for the film's success. In the follow-up in 2014, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, fans would finally see this new rendition of Peter Parker's Spider-Man face off against the Green Goblin. And in the same way the 1970s comic had, ended with the death of Gwen Stacy after the final showdown with the most iconic of Peter's adversaries. The way Garfield delivered Peter's emotional reaction to this event matched the gravity in which it was written in the original stories. In the Amazing Spider-Man film series, Spider-Man's suits undergo distinct designs. The original suit in the first film features a textured and detailed look with the classic red and blue color scheme, along with larger angular lenses and prominent webbing patterns. It also includes mechanical web shooters. The upgraded suit in the second film maintains the red and blue colors, but with modifications, featuring a sleeker and more streamlined design. It has larger rounded lenses and additional technological enhancements, showcasing Spider-Man's intelligence and resourcefulness. Additionally, there is a homemade suit created by Peter Parker using makeshift materials. It has a raw homemade appearance with a red hood, improvised sunglasses for eyes, and a basic web shooter. This suit symbolizes Peter's final unrefined efforts at becoming Spider-Man before acquiring the more advanced version. Overall, the suits in the Amazing Spider-Man films reflect a modern, slightly more realistic interpretation of the character's iconic costume, highlighting Peter Parker's ingenuity and evolution as Spider-Man. The ending of the second film did set up the potential for further sequels, with the starting of a Sinister Six. However, Sony ultimately decided to go in another direction, and the Amazing Spider-Man franchise was brought to an abrupt ending after making Sony another $1.5 billion in box office numbers.
I've met Andrew Garfield, and I think he is terrific. Whoever cast him should get a medal. The funny thing is, he and Tobey are totally different, and yet both were perfect for Peter Parker. They have that every guy quality.
The new direction Sony was planning was with Marvel Studios. Since Sony had bought the rights to Spider-Man in Marvel's Darkest Hour, it had been acquired by Disney and evolved to begin making films in a connected cinematic universe, the MCU we know and love today. Marvel regretted relinquishing the rights to Spider-Man, but Sony did not want to sell. Instead, in the time during the Amazing Spider-Man franchise's production cycle, the two giant production houses were busy negotiating a deal that could bring Spidey into the MCU without Sony having to give up their lucrative IP. Finally, after what felt like years of negotiations to fans of Spider-Man around the globe, it was announced that Peter Parker would be coming to the MCU, and a new franchise was born with Sony and Marvel teaming up, just like the characters on screen, to make it happen for fans. His first appearance in his new home was in Captain America: Civil War, where Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark recruited him to help in the upcoming battle against his old friend Captain America. This first appearance gave new face of the franchise Tom Holland a chance to show off his Peter Parker, and his portrayal of the character was an instant hit. Where Garfield and Maguire had each captured some elements of the character's depth, Holland gave a well-rounded performance, with a great mix of humor, heart, and plenty of emotion, along with capturing Parker's teenage attitudes. The suit in this movie was a modernized and highly detailed rendition of Spidey's iconic costume. It featured a vibrant red and blue color scheme with a distinct black web pattern outlining the blue areas, keeping with the original comic book look. The spider emblem on the chest was larger than in previous film adaptations. One of the standout features was the expressive mechanical eye lenses that can narrow or widen to convey a range of emotions. The suit also incorporated advanced technological elements, including a heads-up display inside the lenses, providing information and enhanced Spider-Man's awareness. Equipped with mechanical web shooters on his wrists, Spider-Man's suit allowed him to shoot webbing for swinging and combat. These upgrades reflected Tony Stark's influence on its creation within the context of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is something that would allow for more spider suit developments in future movies too. Next, Peter's first solo MCU outing would come in Spider-Man: Homecoming, which would pick up where Civil War left off with a younger Peter, mentored by Tony Stark, trying to make his way as a street-level crime fighter, bringing him into conflict with Michael Keaton's portrayal of the Vulture. This was a great introduction for Spider-Man into the MCU. Without needing an origin story, this first chapter meant Holland could build on the character and take it to new places with his own twists. This film also introduces MJ, played by Zendaya. Although not completely true to the original Mary Jane Watson, her role is the same. Ned, Peter's high school friend who stands out about Peter's secret identity, also appears. Then, it was time to help the Marvel Ensemble round out the first saga of the MCU with Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame in 2018 and 19 respectively. Spider-Man, particularly his relationship to Tony Stark, played a big role in the emotive storylines in these two films. It also introduced the Iron Spider suit to the big screen for the first time. Built by Tony Stark, it is a metal suit in red, gold, and black with several mechanical legs that help Spidey grab hold of his surroundings. Great for space travel, huh? This suit first debuted in the comics in 2006 and was brought to life in Infinity War, becoming Peter's go-to suit for future outings. The decade ended with Spider-Man Far From Home in 2019. This film picks up after the events of Avengers Endgame and follows Peter Parker on a school trip to Europe. He faces a new threat, Mysterio, and grapples with the legacy of Tony Stark, who, spoiler alert, died at the end of Endgame, sacrificing himself to defeat Thanos. This movie builds on the relationship between Peter and MJ, with her finding out that Peter is Spider-Man at the end of the movie. It also sets up Peter Parker as a potential heir to Tony Stark's role as the inventor and engineer of the MCU.
It's as if we created a living being to be Spider-Man and it turned out to be Tom.
In the realm of animation, we had some notable and loved shows in this era too. In 2012, Ultimate Spider-Man aired and would go on to run until 2017. It follows a teenage Peter Parker who joins S.H.I.E.L.D.'s team of young heroes, including Nova, White Tiger, Iron Fist, and Power Man, to learn and grow as a superhero. The series incorporates that classic humor and action we all expect, while exploring Peter's journey in a team dynamic. Marvel's Spider-Man then picked up the mantle in 2017. This series provides a fresh take on Spider-Man's origins, focusing on Peter Parker's early days as he navigates high school while balancing his responsibilities as a superhero. It introduces new villains and allies and delves into Peter's growth as both a teenager and a crime fighter. In 2020, we also had Marvel's Spider-Man Maximum Venom. This is technically the third season of the Marvel Spider-Man series. However, it introduces Venom as a central antagonist, leading to a major showdown between Spider-Man and the symbiote-powered villains. For younger audiences, Spider-Man was also brought into their world with Marvel Superhero Adventures, which ran from 2017 to 2020. This show focused around Spidey acting as the narrator, explaining to the audience how he helped another Marvel hero stop a villain. The chibi animations helping a new generation of Spider fans fall in love with the web-slinger. Gamers were also treated to more high-end Spidey games than ever before. Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions came out in 2010 and is an action-adventure game with a strong emphasis on combat and platforming. Players take control of 4 distinct Spider-Men, each from a different dimension: Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Man 2099, and Ultimate Spider-Man. The game contained unique levels tailored to their respective abilities and characteristics. In 2011's Spider-Man Edge of Time, players controlled both Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2099 across different timelines to prevent a catastrophic event from taking place. The Amazing Spider-Man, released in 2012, served as an epilogue to the film of the same name, featuring an open-world New York City for Spider-Man to explore while facing new enemies. In 2014, its sequel, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, expanded on the open-world concepts, allowing players to swing through Manhattan while taking on iconic Spider-Man villains. However, it's Spider-Man in 2018 that is the pick of the bunch, considered one of the best Spider-Man games and best superhero games ever made. It offered an expansive open-world New York City for players to explore as Spider-Man, with a compelling story and fluid gameplay mechanics, and the newest graphics capabilities made the game look incredible. In 2021, Peter appeared in What If?, the first animated series set in the MCU. It explored several alternative realities, but was very much canon for the universe. Spidey's only appearance was in the 5th episode, titled Zombies. With the concept lifted from Marvel's highly successful Zombies crossover events, Spider-Man is one of the few surviving heroes in a zombie apocalypse caused by the events of the Infinity Saga. The Peter we got was not played by Tom Holland, but instead by Hudson Thames. The suit was also darker and less vibrant, but still with a similar design to the ones we'd seen in the live-action MCU movies to date. Then, It was time for one of the most highly anticipated movies of all time, Spider-Man: No Way Home. In 2021, fans got something incredible. Due to the MCU exploring the idea of a multiverse, and with that being woven into the plot of this movie, Peter and Doctor Strange use a spell that allows other universes to spill into the main one. This allowed for the Rogues Gallery from all the previous Spider-Man movies produced by Sony to appear on screen with the MCU Spider-Man, creating plenty of nostalgia. Then, the movie delivers the best twist ever seen in a Marvel film. Not only do the villains spill into Peter's world, but the Peter Parkers from those universes also show up. That's right, Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, and Andrew Garfield all get to share the screen as the web-slinger alongside one another, each in their now iconic suits to collectively fight the villains from their respective movies. The three actors clearly all bear a lot of honor for carrying the Spider-Man torch, and it's a fan moment like no other. The movie ends with a soft reset, much like the Brand New Day comic arc, leaving Peter alone in New York, looking to build a new life for himself. With more MCU movies in the pipeline, we can't wait to see where they take the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man next. Whilst Peter Parker isn't the main focus of the Spider-Verse movies, it's worth mentioning them here. 2021's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse explored Miles Morales' journey through a multiverse full of Spider-Man heroes and villains. It won an Academy Award and is highly rated for its clever use of animation styles and writing to deliver something fresh and exciting in the superhero genre. Whilst Miles is the main character, Peter of course appears in the film. In 2023, the sequel Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse hit cinemas and was an instant success, lauded by both fans and critics for taking the unique take on the character from the first movie and building on it. This may go on to win another Academy Award, but we'll have to see. Small screen animations also continue to come out, offering different takes on the Spider-Man narrative. In 2021, a reboot of the classic's 80s Amazing Friends debuted via Disney Junior, titled Spidey and His Amazing Friends. It offers a modern take on the classic formula. This time, Peter is joined by Miles Morales of Ultimate Spider-Man fame and Gwen Stacy as Ghost Spider, combining three fan-favorite heroes from Spider-Man comics and combining them in this fun animation. Finally, in 2024, we can look forward to a standalone MCU animated series called Spider-Man Freshman Year. The show will cover the as-yet unexplored origins of the MCU version of Peter Parker. We don't know much more yet, but it will surely be an instant hit with Spidey fans. As far as gaming goes, there was a semi-sequel to Marvel's Spider-Man titled Spider-Man Miles Morales in 2020, and whilst Peter isn't the focus of the game, that instead goes to Miles, there were some great cinematic sequences and dialogue between the two characters in the plotline. Then, recently released in 2023, the follow-up to 2019's Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2 is by far the best video game rendition of the beloved character we've ever seen. With next-generation graphics and performance now available, this game takes the open-world Spidey experience to another level, with players able to switch between Miles Morales and Peter Parker's versions of the web-slinger seamlessly. This is officially the highest-rated Spider-Man game of all time, and will go down as the most loved in years to come. What's your favorite Spider story arc, game, or movie, and why? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed our chronicle of the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next pop culture history lesson.